Hey everybody, it's Narrative Tarot. Oh my god, I was just like watching something. I'm still kind of watching it, but I'm just like, man, I'm fucking over this. So it's something that's like kind of triggering for me, and I need to like just patch up the wound, let it heal, and do it. But it's something I've been thinking. I had a video about. Let me get closer. I had a video about ancestors and will ancestral magic work. And I'm gonna be real. I'm feeling after I'm watching this video, whatever. I feel so restricted. So, if you don't know, I'm an African American woman. I live in the United States of America. An African American is a descendant of chattel slavery in the United States of America. Boom. There it is. So they were brought. They're part of their ancestry generally, about like 75 to like 85% are people who came from Africa, enslaved, snatched, and then brought. And then like the other percent is like whatever. But the percentage varies, right? So I was thinking about ancestral magic and like and just like ancestors and stuff like that. And I know this is like gonna be such an unpopular opinion, but one of the things that annoys the shit out of me is, and I see this across minorities, and I just watched something about, read something about indigenous languages and like languages dying. We're entering a time where I think that people are rebelling against like the system, but I don't think that people understand that the system has worked in many ways, and many people have been a part of the system and a part of colonizing and things like that. Even when you think about language, my teacher from my postpartum class was like, "Do you really think that humans' problems started in the last like 600 years?" And she's right. Anybody who debates that, you really like look at human span of time. Like there were issues going on in the world beforehand. I don't know why I'm so angry. I am like angry as shit. And I think it's just like that knowing and knowledge that like that people are using that as an excuse to hold them back. And I don't mean that like there's no genuine problems with the way the world is, but I think that what annoys me about these things is like I feel like ancestrally our ancestors are getting tired of people saying the same thing and not talking to them and not really talking to them, not really listening to them. Like in my mind, I hear like an African guy like fussing at me, right? But I, as an ancestor, however, I never had, and this is something with me being African American, and you can debate it or whatever, but I've never had my ancestors tell me I have to do specific things to link with them. And I would pose this to other groups of people. When you are seeking to have some sort of ancestral connection or some sort of origin connection, be wary of people trying to place on you what that is or telling you that you don't have it. Because I've had somebody tell me I don't have an origin or I don't know my origins. And the thing about that is, when you talk to your ancestors, you realize you are the origin. You are the origin. I believe that every generation has its own preset when it comes to moving humanity forward, moving ancestral lines forward. And I think that depending on some of the circumstances, you may not be able to do that, right? But I think encoded in your DNA is the, I don't know why I have to say this now. Encoded in your DNA is the ability, is dormant ability until you get to the right time and the right circumstances, the right descendant that can utilize that in a way that serves as a click point. And they, it's almost like they keep it hid. It's like the only thing I can come up with, bear with me y'all, is Underground Railroad. If somebody like hand stitches the code in somebody's sleeve. To everybody else, the sleeve just looks like, oh, it's got some flowers and stuff like that. But even to you, it may look like that, but it becomes very useful later on. And I feel like that's what's happening. I feel like there's a lot of revelations about ancestors and ancestry that I think are going to come out. I don't know if the scientific community is going to have some like new stuff to say, but I'm just really annoyed. I'm really annoyed because I feel like people are running to preserve something that I don't know the ancestors are all that keen on preserving in the first place. I think, particularly when it comes to like the article I was reading about language, every language is a colonizing language, even if it's just colonization of like a plant with its meaning, its name, its being, what it does. Like, people don't think that that's colonizing or that's telling the narrative or telling the story and not communing with someone. It's like I'm just having like this journal like freak out. It's almost like I see clearly, but my mind, it's like this buzzing, like, oh, this buzzing. It's this buzzing, 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 buzzing. I guess I'm one to the right. I feel like if you're with me, you're buzzing too. And I don't know what that is. I feel like the ancestors collectively are about to step in with people. When I did that video about the I feel like my body's just like I don't know if that's some new DNA shit I'm integrating or what, but this just incensed me and it's been rolling and stuff like that. It could be just like a piece of the ego like shattering, but like I just feel like the ancestors, and I was thinking this, the ancestors I don't really think are as attached to identity when they cross over as we think they are. And I think that some people reuniting with ancestry and stuff like that is helpful because that's helpful for your line and that helps humanity. But for some of y'all are going down paths that you don't need to know. And you free willed that. You free willed knowing that in that way. And your ancestors are like, because one thing with minority ancestries that I perceive, particularly as an African American, just picking one based on this, not this, I don't think you can see it, this isn't helpful. I don't think people realize that yet. I have guides that are Asian. My first guides were Asian. I knew that they were Asian on Earth and they were human. I'm Black, particularly African American. The time is, I think that whole, this brings up issues of cultural appropriation, but some people are not set to do certain things based on their ancestry. It's based on what they need to get out of it spiritually. And I think a lot of people's ancestors, because they come from all parts of the world, that's the whole realization you're supposed to realize, that we have spread our consciousness onto all parts of the world essentially. And so we shouldn't be as restricted as we are when it comes to these topics. But I think the ancestors are getting pretty fucking up with that. I don't think they have as many identity issues now that they've crossed over as in the past. So I feel like it's a lot of old energy that's just hanging on, and humanity's hanging on and hanging on and hanging on and hanging on. And it's just like, I don't want to say it's a matter of if we can't blame somebody, then who do we blame? Because that's not it. There's a whole recognition of standards and structures and boundaries that couldn't, right? I relate Capricorn, Saturn to the structures that oppress people as much as like structure in general of society. and I relate Cancer to the people that are oppressed under that, right? The ancestry, the ways in which you move your ancestry, the ways in which you move forward based on the setup that you have globally in the world. So there's no hatred on that. But what I'm saying is, I feel like the ancestors are getting tired of people not listening to them. I think the plant kingdom is tired of that. I think the elemental kingdom is tired of. I just think that people are tired of not being heard. And I think I also got a card about like listening and shit like that. But I think on a global scale, these things are tired of not being listened to. So roll this all. I don't even know if I've connected half the stuff. Anyway, I did a video on ancestral magic. Will it still work? I'm reckoning that in the age of Aquarius, it's about to shift. So if you are studying anything, my head is like, I feel like my head is kind of weird. I guess I gotta keep my eyes closed. If you think that going into a specific path you're gonna find yourself, you are sadly mistaken, and you're gonna lose yourself. You need to stay open as possible to anything and anyone who can teach you. You cannot stay in your ethno group. People are not open enough. People are really not open enough. When it comes to what you need to practice, stay open. Stay open. I'm gonna say this. I think the ancestors need everybody now to be in tip-top shape. And we're not. We're not in tip-top shape. If you are a practitioner, there's people that are going to have violent reactions to this. If you're a practitioner, you need to understand the ancestors and how they've shifted. Some of you are following very old models of spirituality. Very old models. It's almost like I want to throw up. Like, it's like bad meat. Like, oh God. It's like they're repulsed by it. I think ancestors, they said they want you to know how to clean your food. I don't think it's, I think it's spiritual food. You need to know how to clean up this stuff. There was a lot of reasons why certain practices were developed. And I'm talking specifically for dark magic, and I'm talking specifically for like the people you go to get certain things done. There was a reason why fear. A lot of this stuff is based in fear, and you need to transition that to actual pure raw knowing. If you in 100 years, this is so far, right? Probably won't be here in 100 years, right? Maybe. But you need to know raw, powerful, unforgiving knowing about ancestry, with the world, earth grid, things like that. Some of these things that are being practiced are out of fear. They cannot persist. And I'm going to say, if you have a mission in your family to complete, I think in the age of Aquarius, this may not be in my lifetime, but what I'm sensing is if you don't complete certain missions, if you don't tick certain boxes, your ancestry is taking you out. That's on period. No, I'm kidding. But that's serious. I think the way that we've done it, they're like, you guys aren't doing stuff. You guys aren't doing what you're supposed to do. They're about to make it so like there's 10 steps. Humankind might be reaching a place where like you know when you came here what your ancestry is, what your background was, what your past life was. And if you don't do what they don't, you're gone. You're done. So don't be surprised if you start seeing a lot of people leaving. You start seeing a lot of weird incidences. It's people leaving. And I do believe that the ancestors, the plant kingdom, the elementals, they need you to be right, righteous, right, whatever. I think that free will shit is not going out the window entirely. I think they're going to give you some wiggle room. This is way into the future, I feel like. But what I'm saying is, for us now, we have more insight than we know. We have more power than we know. And I think the ancestors are tired of us. Tired of us not listening. Collective ancestors, not just your family line, collectively. So I think even if you have a particular bloodline, if you have guides, if you have ancestors, if you have goddesses, plants that want you to do certain work and you don't do it, you know, you're done. You may pass on to the next world to be told like you didn't do something and go back, or you just might find your life increasingly hard and supposed to tell you that you are not on the right path. That's it. That's all. That's it. So I think that the ancestors, they're tired of the destruction. They're tired of, and this is, I feel like this is why I get the ghost dance a lot for my like mystical shaman oracle. because it has a line in there. It's like when we blame them for everything, they haunt us, and I think they are tired of being blamed. I think that some responsibility has to be taken. I think that the old narratives of all the isms really need to be shifted. And um, I don't think the ancestors will allow you to commune with them anymore if you can continue to, I'm not going to say perpetuate, but if you continue to believe that their life was only constructed that way, that their life was only constructed by the isms. It's a lot that they haven't told y'all. It's a lot that they haven't said. And the reason why is because you're constantly looking through that lens of isms. And if you start to see their life through the lens of their life as a being, just a being, you might get somewhere. I think the days of the isms for everybody, it doesn't matter if it's racism, sexism, ageism, it doesn't matter what ism it is. It doesn't matter. I think they've reached a point where they're just tired of that. Everything has to die, essentially. And start over. So, that's it. So, to sum up, the ancestors, the consciousness that is ancestors, has a lot more to tell you. You have to do away with the isms, the ologies, stuff like that, that we know, that we conceptualize on human consciousness level. There's a veil that's keeping that hidden. If you are of a particular ancestry, you need to open yourself up to learning about different ones. Cultural appropriation is real. Thievery is real. Acknowledgement does need to be given. However, there is no barring anymore. You can't bar someone from their spiritual evolution, and that's what we find with this protectionist kind of thing. If you also are someone, this is for me as well, because I have these kind of aspects in my chart, people seeking knowledge, truth, particularly when it comes to spirituality, you will be knocked down as well. If you tend to bar it, if you tend to say, this is in my culture, our culture, and you're not open, you're not receptive to other people being there, you're going to get knocked down. You can be guardians of it and defenders of it, but you have to realize that you aren't the originators in some way of it. So course correct, right? Like, so a basic example, I'm African American. Soul food. Soul food is a mix of different cultures. It's primarily eaten by like Black people, but it's also an American thing. When it comes to it, an example would be, yeah, anybody can eat soul food, but just acknowledge the branches that it comes from and appreciate the struggles of the people who created it, right? You can't sit here and look at soul food and be like, oh yeah, anybody can eat it, without acknowledging the struggles of people. Just like you wouldn't be able to eat I don't know, you wouldn't be able to eat like Mexican dishes without really thinking of what the people went through, the struggles that people go through to make it. And that's how you truly are able to participate multiculturally, multilingually, is that the languages and the constructs and the words and the meanings and things like that came through different struggles of people. And for you to fully participate it, you may not have a full participation in that you are from that context or culture, but giving gratitude to the people that labored and put their energy into it while they were here, right? Being thankful to them for actually taking up the struggle to do what you wouldn't have been able to do. Let's be real. So it doesn't matter the language, it doesn't matter the song, it doesn't matter the dress, it doesn't matter the land, it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Someone sacrificed somewhere. And so wherever you end up in the world, wherever you go in the world, you have to really be open and realize that the necropolis overlays that, and the suffering that comes with the people in the necropolis. Some of them didn't cross over well. Some of them are angry. Some of them want to be acknowledged. But a lot of them, once they left, they chose to be the guides and the light and the way for people regardless of their path, as far as their ancestral path. And I didn't scratch myself, I was using markers. And so there has to be reverence and respect given. But a lot of y'all have to stop being boxed in by your own culture, which you think your only culture is. I'm African American, and I'm very reserved. I'm very like, about African spirituality, mainly because I haven't been called to it. But you know, there's people, you will look at me and think that the first thing I should practice is something like Ifa, Santeria, Voodoo. I'm not drawn to it. I'm drawn to things like chakras. I'm drawn to Reiki, sound meditation, Tibetan both. Like that's where I am, because that's where some of my guides are. My ancestors, they're okay with me not necessarily getting into those practices because they have other things that I can tap into with their knowledge, and that's something that people forget. Your ancestors have more knowledge than the systems of religions and spirituality that you practice. Some of that stuff can't fit within those confines. Some of that stuff colonized those things out. I don't think people get that. That's it. I feel way better. I feel like this was related to this that I was watching and angry, but I really do think that that came through. I guess I was the one to do it. But that's something that's going to be very remarkable, very well noted in people's lives. So if you start to feel that energy come through, then that's probably what it is. That's probably what Pisces season's about to be about. That's probably that portal I was talking about. Right there. Right there. So it doesn't mean give up your religious beliefs. You practice Ifa, spirituality, Celtic, Druid. It don't matter. What I'm saying is, excuse me, that's a box. And there's something outside of the box that everybody can learn from. Has nothing to do with ancestry, everything to do with the DNA presets of what it's supposed to do. Just because the DNA is coming from this haplogroup in Africa doesn't mean that the spiritual DNA wants you to practice something. There's something that maybe you need to find out with the Philippines. There's something you might need to find out in Honduras. There's something you might need to find out in Norway. Because it's the spiritual DNA that you're trying to get. And that actually does help your actual DNA because it helps you relieve yourself of some of those issues. We have pieces of ourselves all over the world. It's your job to open up to make sure that you can access them. Doesn't mean that boundaries and borders, this is something that like people that I know, like they get really angry when I say this, but it doesn't mean that boundaries and borders aren't there. Because you gotta respect, like I said, boundaries and borders are very important. They're important to people, they're important to regions, they're important to nation states. It just is. But you have to understand that you can have boundaries and you can commune with other people, but there's a way that you commune with other people. And that's what I'm getting at. Because I've called people who don't do that parasites. I've been told that what I said was wrong. Not wrong. It's like, because the parasite ends up being eaten by the real parasite of the whole situation. That's an alert to somebody that I know probably watches this video, but think about that. Anyway, I think this is done. After 33 minutes, it goes to another video, so I wanted to do the redemption readings. This was more important, I guess, so maybe there's another reading in the works, but I'll go ahead and upload this. So talk to you later. Bye.